how do you set goals and frequency you check in on them, you're tracking them for you specifically and like within Triple Whale, and then how do you communicate that with the rest of your team?
Sometimes they're very specific to the project. I would say overall, Triple Whale is growing really rapidly. We went from 2-digit number of customers to over I think we're at almost 4,500 Shopify stores right now in a number of months. It's just an absolute explosion.
Hello and welcome to E-commerce Uncovered. I'm your host, Matt Lady. Each and every week, I get the pleasure of chatting with and learning from a wide variety of passionate, intelligent founders, operators, and practitioners in the wonderful world of e-commerce. Today's episode is with the head of Beans, aka head of brand of Triple Whale. Triple Whale is a central source of truth for your e-commerce store, so you can view all your meaningful data from a customizable dashboard or mobile app. Without further ado, Head of Brand, Alexa Kilroy, welcome to the show. And please explain the origin story of Head of Beans for those listening who aren't on Twitter 24/7.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I wish I had a better story, but the reality is that I have weird thumbs, and every time I type head of brand, it autocorrects to head of beans. I do not know why. I don't know who is out to get me, but I've become the head of beans, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And you've been at Triple Whale for a couple months now, right?
Yes, I have.
Awesome.
Sorry, I apologize for anyone who's watching. My boss is in the other room telling me that the mic was turned around the wrong way.
Okay,
He's waving through the window.
Okay, thank you. Was that Rabba?
Yes, that was Rabba, the great
Rabba. I had him
Rabba.
on episode 2.
He's looking at me funny through the glass window in the office, like, "What are you doing?" And
There you go.
I'm not used to the podcast
No,
mics
that's
yet.
all good. You sound a lot better and more clear now, so that's perfect.
Makes sense.
Okay, so let's start with what does brand? This is a very elusive word for people. It's one of those things, depending on who you ask and when you ask them, and if you have quotes or not, and it means a bunch of different things. So to you, in this current moment, Alexa, what does brand mean to you?
Yeah, I think really, if I have to synthesize it, brand is the experience of interacting with a company. So it's visual, it's messaging, it's your interactions with them. At the end of the day, every person that works in brand has this dream ideal in which if you were to go to someone in Times Square and ask them on the street, what is Triple Whale? They have the awareness to give you an answer of what it is. And then they're also able to tell you, obviously you want it to be positive, but how that brand makes them feel, how that company makes them feel, and then be able to justify it by saying, I love their messaging, or I love the content that they provide, or I love their community, or I love, their tone of voice when I talk to our customer service team and they're like super helpful and sweet. And so I think, you can have a company that sells products, or you can have a brand that people are advocates of and love interacting with and love to refer to their friends. And I think it's a very all-encompassing ethereal word. I agree. And so thus it makes my job very fun and flexible and creative. Um, but I think if you think too hard about it, your brain breaks. So I would lean into experience with a company as being my answer.
That is that's an incredible answer and makes a lot of sense in terms of, if you ask someone about the brand. I love how you started with that, because as the founder, as the operator, you can yell and shout and try to form your brand as much as you want and like craft it a certain way, but ultimately, like you said, it's what the customer, it's what the client, whatever experiences and how they explain it. So I wanted to reiterate that, as I love that point. So knowing that, a lot of people listening are founders or soon to be founders, or they're consultants, freelancers, agencies working with brand founders of D2C brands. So what is someone just getting started in the world of brand? What is the MVB? What's the minimal viable brand, like essentials for someone that's looking to launch an e-commerce brand? Like, how would you even start to simplify it down? What's the starting point?
That's a really great question. And I can tell you that the wrong answer is I need to have my color palette right, or I need to have my logo right. Don't get me wrong, those elements are all very important. And, there are different things that our brain registers in different ways. So yes, we do remember visuals and logos, but I don't know if you've ever taken one of those little like iPhone quizzes and it shows you a logo, but it removes the name. So it'll be like, the imagery, but it doesn't say Exxon, for example. And you have to match them with the actual brand name. Really actually quite freaking hard to do, even as someone in brand. And so it's like, it's not your logo. Like your mountains are cool, but it ain't that. I would say as you're thinking about building a brand from scratch, what I encourage everyone to do is first, you just need, uh, I don't think you can build a brand on day one of building your company. You need to build a company that sells something first. You need to have customers. Once you have customers and you have a statistically significant amount of customers, i.e., not just your mom and your sister-in-law, then you can start asking them about their experience with the products, their experience with why they're interested in purchasing your products, why they purchased from you, what helped them to convert, all those sorts of things. And you really need to become a student of your customer. And then it's about figuring out, okay, now how do we present our company in a more all-encompassing way to support the needs of our client? And so for a big brand like Nordstrom, right, that's a luxury experience. So yeah, they sell lots of different products, but they target people who have more money, who want to buy designer brands. And so that meant we're putting our shoes on really nice hardwood display racks, and we have really plush carpet in certain places, and we have really cool displays, that kind of thing, right? So it's like thinking about what kind of experience your customer wants to have, expects to have, what's ideal for them, and then kind of building backwards off of that. Um, and I also would say to that point, like, don't stress about building a brand in the first months, because as your business grows, you might find that you want to diversify your SKUs or diversify your product line in a direction that you hadn't originally intended. And then if you lock yourself into being like, sock brand for women, but you realize that there's way better market opportunity elsewhere, then you effectively have to rebrand. And that's really high friction. It's a huge overhaul. And so, when you feel like you're ready to really lean in to like, okay, it's time, it's really about becoming a student of your customer and then working backwards on your messaging and your visuals and making it all align.
I love the Nordstrom example, and that's like a retail example and all the things that are associated with that, those products and in the store. So to like, for a brand new D2C brand, like lean into that you're a single person probably, or you have a co-founder, and like you aren't a big box store, you aren't a big brand, like you're personal, it's customer service, it's that customer experience,
Yeah.
it's messaging, it's like handwritten notes, all that sort of things are like the small elements that can that don't scale but that help you scale. So just a quick shout
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
Totally.
You kind of stole my next question by adding in from before about how it evolves over time and how
Yeah.
it changes. So, what would you recommend in terms of like an exercise, a question, a tactic, a process of when your brand is growing and scaling? Like, how do we like evolve with it, and how do we help mold it, or what guardrails do we put up?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really hard to say like it all depends on the cost structure of your business. So like what a statistically significant amount of orders or customers are when you feel like you're ready. You will know when it's time to build a brand. It's like you will have reached a point in which you've sold a lot of product, but you're lacking some sort of retention, you're lacking some sort of buy-in, you don't have a lot of like ongoing purchase activity or ongoing engagement from prior purchasers, and you start to feel it. And so I think what I describe to people is brand building either happens when a company grows really quickly and they're like, okay, now we need to tighten things up, which is a perfect example of what happened in the case of Triple Whale. We blew up really fast, and then it was like, okay, now we really need someone to steer their ship on like what this brand is, means, and does. Or you grow to a point and then you kind of reach a plateau. Like this happens a lot with D2C brands where they go heavy on performance marketing and direct response. It also happens to a lot of folks who started out in drop shipping, and they reach a plateau and then they're like, I can't seem to scale or grow anymore. And it's like, okay, now, of course, you can always offer different products, but besides diversifying your product line, where can you really build something meaningful that helps you leverage your existing customers, pull in retention plays, start to like build a name for yourself outside of a company that sells products. And so it, you feel it when it's time is kind of the answer on when it happens. Questions to ask, I really would say, like, it's going to feel aggressive, but spend a lot of time. When I started at AAA, I spent about 2 weeks just booking all day of customer interviews in addition to calls within my team, because I obviously came to an established team that had some leadership and had some vision, but you know, really figuring out what your people want. One of the hardest things for founders to do is talk to people who churned or who haven't purchased again, or people who wrote a negative review, because it sucks. It really hurts your ego when your brand is your baby. But it's really essential to understand from them if it truly was a product failure or it was an experience failure, and figuring out where you can optimize your business to retain people. And then at some point, you also just want to think about, okay, like, what am I going to provide as a business besides my product? Do I want to have a community? Do I make running shoes and I want to have a running community and I want to have cool running content on YouTube and a blog? Or, you know, do I make snacks and powders and things and I want to figure out how to write recipes or whatever? Like, you know, brand strategy guides a lot of executional marketing strategy and retention strategy and customer service strategy. And it's just so much more than like cleaning up your website and cleaning up your color palette. And so I would really challenge you that when you're starting to feel like you're hitting that point when it's time to spend more time than you feel you need talking to your customers and figuring out where the future of your business needs to go to grow.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Talking to your customers, we all talk, everyone talks about it, people tweet about it all day, but there's some merit to it, to actually listen, not just talk to them, talk at them, to actually listen. And there's different ways to listen and to talk with them. So it's customer calls, it's interviews, it's emails, it's text message, it's a survey. So if you're not the most outgoing, or if you want to try different, there's a bunch of ways to go about it. So don't pigeonhole yourself, or don't stress too much about it. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. It does form, it kind of just changes over time. It evolves. It just levels up. It's kind of like a Pokemon at some time. It's just like, it's time to level up and evolve to the next stage. And there's pros and cons, and there's changes that have to happen. Okay. So now there's a series of questions from our friend and creative strategist, Sarah Levinger. She asked on Twitter, the first one up is, when it comes to creating a brand strategy, what elements of the business do you include? We kind of went over this one already, but just like kind of reiterate it maybe and simplify it.
Yeah, I think besides the stuff we already talked about, you really need to understand what the true value of your business is, what the true value of your product or products is for people. If you're selling multiple products and people are purchasing multiple products, you need to figure out what the ultimate goal is, like in them purchasing multiple products. If you're selling one product like Triple Whale, you know, every company, every founder, every person on a marketing team, we have our ideas of why the product rocks or why people want it, and what we've synthesized and what we've ideated the data to mean. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not right, and we read the data wrong. You know, we made our, I don't know, like we built our insights around the data in a way that made sense to us, but isn't actually true to the world. And so I think the first thing is really figuring that out, because you'll never nail your brand messaging, understanding really who your target customer is, until you figure out what makes your product or products magical to your customers. So I think that's part of it. And also just having a really strong grasp on like really what it is and does. So I'm not a technical person, I'm a creative person, but I spend a lot of my personal time investing in figuring out what our product is and does and how it technically works. And even if you aren't in SaaS, this still applies, right? Because if you have a cool gadget or a orthopedic shoe or something, right? Like you need to understand really how it works and why it does what you say it does. So I think that's part of it. And I don't know, there are just like so many things. It's so hard to kind of synthesize like my whole process and how I do it. But I hope that's helpful. Yeah. And
one follow-up question is, some people, this is for me, not from Sarah, to clarify. Sorry, Sarah, we'll get back to your questions. there's a lot of emphasis on this one word brand mission statement, or one word like on your hero image of your site, like this explain it simply. And there's a lot of back and forth on what's the right way to go about it, or what you should be able to do with that. Like for a physical product like a D2C brand, like what is your guidance around that, like simplified messaging of that kind of statement?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually recently came across a new answer to this. I would say like about a week ago, I was working on a tech partnership thing with one of our tech partners, Gorgeous, and I had to explain everything that Triple Whale is and does in 60 characters or less. Um, that is not a lot of characters. That's hardly even a full sentence, particularly when you have like a complicated product or brand. And so I would say, as a starting point, I would challenge everyone who's listening to see if you can explain what your company is and does in 60 characters or less. And if you can't, figure out a concise way to do it. That's a good exercise. And then obviously, you don't really have those limitations on your website or anything like that, but building off of that and giving it some color. But the classic, like, ride the elevator up elevator pitch, it really does apply to everyone. And I think consumers are getting smarter and smarter as ads are served in greater volume. They're starting to understand what UGC is. They're starting to understand like what kind of hacky direct response copy looks like. And so they're getting to the point where they're like, just freaking tell me what it is and why it's better, or why I should want it. And so if you can't have a sentence like on your H1 that tells someone what it is and why they should want it, like you need to go back to the drawing board if that doesn't exist right now. And if your H1 sentence has like a lot of fluff, or things that make you feel good, but you show it to your grandma and it means nothing to her, then like try again, because like the average American is on like a fourth grade reading level, right? Really sad, but true. And so make sure that, even if your target customer is above a fourth grade reading level, make sure it's at their reading level where they can just absorb it quickly, understand it quickly. And the better you are, the more clear you are with your messaging, the more direct you are, the easier the path to conversion will always be.
Excellent follow up on that. That was wonderful. Your character limit 60 or less. That's really cool. And to give people context of like actually what 60 characters is, I just got on TikTok like 3 days ago. So in your bio, it's literally 80 characters. So and I'm like, oh crap, that's like, I'm long-winded. I like talking a lot. I'm run-on sentences my jam. But 80 characters is not nothing. Tweets used to be 140, now they're 280. And your Twitter bio is 160 characters. So like that 60 characters or less is short, concise, but it's like no fluff, and it hopefully is more unique to you, because there's the other school of thought of like, oh, explain the benefits, not the features, and then you get these like really ambiguous and like just hard to grasp messages, and then you could just replace like any company logo, any company name with those things, like helping you work from anywhere, like these SaaS tools, and you're like, okay, like that's so many different things. That could be 10, 20, 30 different companies. So trying to figure out what actually is your differentiator. So amazing little little guideline there. Okay, so back to Sarah's questions. She's made my job a lot easier today. So so in terms of tracking results for brand, what are some key factors? What are some key metrics? And she specifically asked how and what is community one of them?
Yeah. So first of all, I would agree that community is one of them. There are qualitative and quantitative ways, and I use both. So you can always, if you really want something very, like if you really want to put numbers in a spreadsheet, you can do things like NPS scores or sentiment analysis. So I have a great social listening tool called Meltwater that like scrapes the whole internet for people talking about triple whale. And I can get sentiment analysis, positive, negative, or neutral based on even like down to the platform that people are talking about us, the countries where people are talking about us. So we have opportunity. It's like, oh, hey, it looks like XYZ competitor has a bigger share of voice and there's more negative commentary about our brand in Alaska. Like, let's focus on doing some good stuff in Alaska and like building some good relationships there. So there are some very like numeric factors if you really want that. I think a lot of it is very qualitative. It's asking people about their experiences with the brand in coming to an event, in using the product. It's willingness for people to partner with us on different things, how easy it is for us to get sponsorships if we want to have an event. How active people are in our Slack community. We have like a super active, super robust Slack community. We actually have a head of community who like owns it and manages it. And so he has his own KPIs for it. But at the end of the day, it's like, are people really advocates for what's going on here? And if they're really active in that Slack community and they're coming to our events and really excited about it, then yes, they are. We have a good brand presence. And there's share of voice on social and our social engagement. So I would say like a lot of other people's like direct numeric KPIs have some sort of qualitative element that then plays into mine. And I would say a lot of how I evaluate my success in my role is very like experiential asks and surveys, and it's about making sure people feel good at the end of the day, and then also making sure like if there's a fire, if there's chaos, it's dealt with, and it's dealt with in like a respectful and positive and the right way. So
yeah, so qualitative, quantitative, bunch of ways to track it. Community is important, and you mentioned that you have a head of community, you manage the Slack group, and you were talking about how you have other members of the team that are like kind of their vision, their direction, like what they think the tool does and what the brand should be. How do you, as the head of brand, you're the head of beans, like how do you get the rest of the team behind these brand specific goals, or how do you make sure that you work with the other team members to make sure that your like performance goals are being hit or these other things are taken into account, and it's not just make everyone feel good. Like you have to make money too. You have to grow and do all these other things.
Yeah.
So how do you balance all that?
Yeah, well, right now I'm really fortunate. I mean, our team is just so insanely talented. Like it's out of control, and everyone is very aligned on like the growth and the mission and the vision that is Triple Whale. And we're really good at just figuring out if people are going to be a good fit for what that is when we're hiring. So part of it is actually like culture fit when you're hiring. And I know that's not a direct answer to your question, but I think one of the biggest signs that someone should not be on your team is if they can't align with like the mission, the vision, the values of the organization. And that is all very tied to brand and the direction of the organization. It is way easier to paddle a canoe when everybody is like paddling in sync together. When you have that one guy like flailing in the back, it rocks the boat and it just doesn't go well. And so that's a huge part of it. Another part of it is just like building time to really be aligned. So having, right now our team that is very collaborative, our kind of content, community, education, brand, creative side of the marketing team, we all work out of an office together 4 days a week, and we just like roll our chairs over to other people's desks or sit on the couch with them and be like, all right, we need to jam on this really quick to make sure we're aligned. And so that's part of it. And then the other thing is like, at the end of the day, we like, this is our job, right? It pays our rent, it pays our mortgage, it pays our kids' meals. And so like, of course we need to make money as a business. And so it's just about making sure that your lead gen and your very like financially aligned sprints that you're working on can be supported by some of that more like feel good, fun content stuff. But ultimately, like everybody's still seeing the results that they want to see. And so it's about knowing everybody's roles and expectations and how they all play into that. And then knowing like I, as a person, likely am not going to have, millions of dollars of revenue directly attributed to me. But that's okay as long as the whole business and the whole rocket ship is moving in the right direction. And once everyone's bought in on that and understands that and is aligned on that, then it's a really easy time to work,
Yo,
you know?
you said that hiring was like not directly answering my question, but I'm gonna like pivot that a little bit and saying that it did help
Yeah.
a lot, and it did answer my question because uh, I've hired people in the past with freelancers and contractors or people with this and that, and hiring is tough. It's not easy. So if you're a founder and you're listening to this and you're like looking for that first hire, or you're gonna hire a freelancer or an agency, like keep brand and vibe and fit in these things, not just, oh, they're the cheapest, or oh, they have the best case studies on their site. Like who you work with is and how you work with them is really, really, really important. So yeah.
Yeah. I think if I could like give a tiny bit of hiring advice, I've made a lot. I'm objectively a young person in a relatively senior role, and that means I've made a lot of mistakes so far in a short period of time, admittedly, and like I'm big enough to accept failure. So I have hired people who were an absolute terrible fit before because I hired on skill and I hired on what they said in their resume, and I did not hire on like vibes alignment because I was like, I really need this to get done. I really need it to get crushed. I'm time crunched. I need someone who can just come in and crush. And the reality was it didn't work out because we didn't work well together. We weren't very well aligned on the mission and the vision for the business. They might not have been able to be autonomous or independent enough, this, that, and the other thing. And so like one of our team members at the company, he has this kind of test that he asks you to think about when you're interviewing somebody. And it's like, first of all, you can always teach someone to strengthen their skills as long as they're smart enough. So like make sure they're smart enough. But if you were about to take a flight with somebody and your plane got delayed for 6 hours and you're stuck at the airport with them, would you be miserable if you had to sit in one of those uncomfortable airport seats next to them for 6 hours? And if you would be miserable, then do not hire that person, even if they are the most talented person in the world, because all they're going to do is cause you pain. It's true. It sucks, but it's true. And so I really believe in like waiting till you find the right person that's the right vibe fit, or working to woo the person that is your dream person until you can have them.
6 hour airport chair litmus test vibe check. Love
Yeah,
it.
gut
Okay.
check. Yeah,
Okay.
vibe
Yeah, that's
check.
awesome. I hadn't heard it in that way before. But if you think about it, depending on your office chair, like that's not too different from being in an office with
Yeah.
someone 5 days a week. So I think that's a really good way to reframe it and look at it that way. So that's how you kind of get team members behind the brand, is you have like alignment with the leadership at the top, and then they take the right time to hire the right people to help, and you're all paddling the same way. Uh, Someone wants to go down the like fast rapids over here, but you guys are like, nope, we're actually going this way, Matt. Like don't
Nope.
steer us that way. So that's good to reiterate. So you've been doing a lot of at least once a week, if not more, or different frequencies. I've seen you post brand in public, these updates and threads on kind of how things are
Yeah.
going. So what are some, like, you've talked about goals that other people have. Like, how do you set goals and the frequency you check in on them, you're tracking them for you specifically, and like for like within Triple Whale? And then how do you communicate that with the rest of your team?
Yeah. Typically, I would say, like, yes, there are overarching goals, but right now I have a lot of project-based goals. So we have very specific events with specific goals that we're trying to get, out of those events. Or we have, you know, specific goals for partnerships or collaborations that we're doing or merch that we're producing. So sometimes they're very specific to the project. Um, I would say overall, Triple Whale is growing really rapidly. We went from two-digit number of customers to over, like, I think we're at like almost 4,500 Shopify stores right now in a number of months. It's just an absolute explosion. And so one of my goals right now is to make sure that like every single person, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, is getting an incredible experience. And so it's, for me, it's kind of checking off like a list of all of our touch points, working with the different teams that own them, making sure the messaging feels good, the design feels good, making sure people are responding well to it, like reviewing tickets, reviewing responses to emails, reviewing what's going on at HubSpot, all that stuff, and making sure everything feels good, making sure that our events are producing the desired result for the attendees, not necessarily for us in terms of our business functions. Making sure people have the resources they need is a big thing right now. So a lot of building the plane as you fly it is like, you know, you're like, oh man, I really wish we had this thing made 10 minutes ago. And so I've been just kind of popping in. It's like, oh, we need this, SDR, like one pager type resource. Can somebody spring it up? And I'm like, I'm on it. I hear it. I understand the value of it. And so there are some goals there in terms of making sure we have our resources set up really well. And one of my bigger goals is kind of more brand awareness. And so we're very fortunate, our team has a lot of awesome people on it who have worked in the D2C world before, have really great connections. And so they came into the company knowing some of the big swingers in e-com, like the Nick Shackelfords, the Chase Diamonds, et cetera. However, the Twitter Bird app section of digital marketing and advertising is a microcosm of the broader Shopify ecosystem, and we run for Shopify right now. And so one of my broader kind of goals for the year is to kind of pierce beyond our bubble of influence and sphere of influence right now, and really make sure that we're doing what we're set out to do, which is supporting small to medium-sized business e-commerce entrepreneurs in their growth journey.
That is really cool and good to hear, and echoes a lot of thoughts that I often have in conversations I have with people off the Bird app about the Bird app. Is that we think it's everything. It's like the whole universe, but that's just like you said. It's a microcosm. It's a small part. Some people like, oh, this person doesn't have any followers and they're a founder of this brand. Well, maybe they're like 8-9 figure brand owner and they just don't have time. They just don't have time to tweet or don't prioritize it. They work and then they go with their family. They do other stuff. So I think it's just really smart, really good that you are aware of that and are thinking about that, and going beyond the Bluebird app. So
yes,
that's great. That is excellent. So, okay, and then you've been doing these threads like weekly, kind of or whatever. So how do you, in terms of goals or tracking or like milestones, is it like quarterly? Is it half a year? Is it yearly? You have big ambitions. You've grown so quickly, really fast. It's hard to maybe narrow it down, but just wanted to talk about that.
I would say we have company-wide quarterly goals. Always, we're really, building so fast that I think our line of thought and what is highest priority frequently changes, every few months or so, as people are really asking for a new feature, as people are really having a problem with something or really want something. And so it hasn't been incredibly effective for us to think like product pipeline like crazy far in advance, because we're really trying to like provide the market with what it needs. But I would say we have general, company annual goals, general monthly company goals in terms of things like MRR or ARR targets. And then we have, for myself, I definitely have like monthly OKRs basically that I'm working towards. And usually it's because there are a lot of short-term projects on my plate. Like, we have this event coming up. We have to get XYZ thing done. And so those have, the monthly kind of sprints for them. And then for myself, I have annual goals. What's really cool about Triple Whale is like, it's such a collaborative space that, I showed up and I asked Raba, our CMO, like, hey, what do you want my KPIs? What do you want my OKRs to be? And he was like, why don't you build them and tell me what you think is valuable and important for the business? And I was like, sweet, that's great, because I have strong opinions. And then I brought them back to him and he was like, these all sound great, no qualms, let's rock and roll. And so I feel very fortunate for that. But it's definitely just making sure that for me, it's making sure that we're on track with like our urgently upcoming things, all the, whether it be a physical in-person event, a feature release, a whatever. There are a lot of things that come up that are like, oh shoot, XYZ is broken. We need to figure out a way to deal with it or fix it. And I deal with those things very quickly. And then there are longer term goals like, long-term partnerships, sponsorships, things like that, and overarching brand awareness goals that I'm working towards. So everything is in Notion, and it makes sense to my brain and Raba's brain. Good luck to anybody else who tries to figure it out. But it's in a Notion.
Yeah, Notion is a beast in its own operating system in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Especially as a startup, and it's changing. The growth is so quick, and you don't want to. Oh, we're setting course for here, and we're just gonna put our heads down for a year and then look up and see where we're at. Like, you guys are constantly looking up and down, and different team members are looking at different perspectives. Like, oh no, the canoe's got to go this way, or like, oh shit, the oar broke. Like, there's different ways to think about it like that. So, for you, Miss Head of Brand, what's a recent win that you or your team has had? Could be a customer review, a customer experience, interaction. What's a recent win that you've had, and like, what does it mean to you?
Wow. I do two different things in my job, so I'm going to give you two. I'm cheating. So one is like a very personal win. So I started owning our tech partnerships. I have no experience like properly building a partnerships marketing model from the ground up, but I've been working on it for the past month. And we just like formalized our partnership with Gorgeous, which is really huge. If you're not familiar with Gorgeous, they're a customer support platform. And they're just like really optimized for e-com. So they have a lot of incredible businesses, and I'm getting to just work with a lot of really smart people on their team. And we have a lot of exciting things that we're working on together. And I'm like really proud of how that's coming along, and it feels like a huge win. And it's cool to have kind of another like whale, no pun intended, in the e-com space that sees as much value in us as we see in them. And so that has been incredible. On the more customer facing side, it's actually astonishing to me how many people I meet that say the phrase triple whale changed my life or changed my business. And I at first thought that they were just kind of gassing me up and like trying to get a t-shirt, and then I started to realize like it really is true. And so it can give you kind of a quick TLDR story, but shout out to Greg at New Wave. He's a founder of a coffee company called New Wave. They make just really cool coffee for like focus and creative and concentration. The first time that I ever met him, he literally came up and was like, dude, Triple L literally changed my life. It changed the future of my business. I like would love to talk to you about it sometime. Like, I'm profitable now. And I was like, oh shit, like thanks. That's great. Like, let's talk.
Oh,
and so I was actually at a geek out like in between presentations. And so we set up some time to chat. We just like hung out for an hour, and he was telling me basically that like there was so much about his business that he really didn't like understand or wasn't thinking about, or like didn't realize what was in the red and what exactly was in the green. And it just like, it brought so much to light for him that he was able to better like financially model for his business, obviously like better run ads for his business. And now he works full-time on his e-commerce business. He doesn't have another job with an e-commerce business on the side anymore. And so that to me is like, my background is actually in education and teaching. And so I'm really passionate about watching people grow and evolve and learn. And he's just like the perfect example of somebody who kind of went through that evolution with us and now is just rocking and rolling and having a really successful e-com business. And he truly sells bags of coffee, mugs. I think he has like a little bit of swag, but it's a pretty simple like business model that he's working with. And that's not to downplay it at all. Like I'm saying, like, if you are an entrepreneur and you're like, I only have one SKU, I don't know how far I can scale this or whatever, like believe in yourself, because it's definitely very possible. And so just getting to chat with him and learning about his business and knowing that he wasn't gassing me up and that he was being very real, which Greg, I will say, is like one of the most real people I've ever met in my whole life too. But now we give each other big hugs when we see each other, and we've built a really good relationship. And I think it really warms my heart when I get to interact with people who have had an experience that was truly life-changing for them from like effectively a SaaS platform. That's insane to me.
Yep.
So I'm very grateful for that.
What more can you ask for? Life changing and like actually
I
meaning it.
know.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
Greg has been all over Twitter, and I've interacted with him. He's a good guy. So that's really
Good guy.
cool that he's mentioned that, and he's full time on it now. That's the
Yeah.
you're literally helping people achieve their dreams, and like a lot of these people, myself included, just small business owners. We're trying to build our own, make our own way, pave our own path, and when we have tools and utilities and cool stuff like Triple and these other platforms help us, it's really incredible. So that's
Yeah.
really neat. Um, okay, so I'm gonna go back. I have a couple follow ups off that. So for the partnership one, you're like, oh, I've never really built out a marketing partnership program before. Okay, so in the last month, you've done that. You've gotten Gorgeous, which is like a pretty big player in this space. How did they come to you? Did you go to them? How did you approach that? Did you have like did you make a partnership persona profile of like who you think? So
No.
talk to me about
No.
this. Yeah.
So to be fair, somebody must have talked to somebody before I started.
Okay.
I don't know what like the first conversation was that ever happened, but what I do know is that like 2 weeks ago we hadn't signed the paperwork to make it an official marriage, and we have now, because I had to set some systems in place. So that's kind of the quick TLDR on that. But what I will say is, big shout out to Mia Bobak at Gorgeous. I actually went into Ecom Sweetie, which is a women's e-commerce conference. I went to Ecom Sweetie in LA a couple weeks ago. Gorgeous sponsored it. We sponsored it. I got to meet with Mia, who gave a talk about, she just did her like Gorgeous and CX excellence talk. And I loved her talk. It was so good. Walked up to her after. I was like, hey, we have an integration for your product. Somebody at some point, like our customers love Gorgeous. At some point, somebody talked to somebody because we built this integration, but I have no idea what's going on with the State of the Union. Like, can we make some magic happen? Like, it was literally just like that. And she was like, oh, hell yeah. We had been wanting to do stuff with you for a long time, but like, we thought you guys were busy. And I was like, no, we are, but like, that doesn't matter. Like, let's do it. And so we just kind of jammed, and then we set up some calls, and they have a really well set up program. And so we've been able to model some of our things off of theirs. They were really willing to share resources, and they're just really good people. I'm very thankful for them. And Mia is just an incredible person. And so she was really great in kind of supporting me as I was building this out and figuring it all out. And so, yeah, now we're rocking and rolling. And we've got so many people in the pipeline that want to partner with us, but we just didn't have a structure set in place now. And so now I get to kind of hit the gas pedal on getting to hop on with all these people and figuring it
Yeah.
out. So I'm super
No,
excited.
that's awesome. That's great. So what you have all these people that are interested that you're gonna talk to and vibe with and do the vibe checks and all that stuff. Like from your point of view, Triple Whale is a SaaS tool, so we'll start there. But I'm gonna try to bring it around for the D2C brands. Is like, what are you looking for in the partnership, and like what are you kind of checking out? Like, is it different audiences but similar like goals? Is it like tell me a little bit, like, and I know you may not have all the answers. You're 1 month into it, but just like tell me what you're
No,
tell
you're
me what
totally
you're
good.
thinking about it.
That's a
Yeah.
great question. Yeah, so I actually can totally speak to this because there are multiple legs to our partnership program. So we have agency partners, obviously that's more sales and client focused. We have tech integration partners. Those are very related to SaaS. So that's really, we're trying to share our clients, and it's a big like lead gen push. We have tech non-integration partners. So those are people who we just want to be friends with and like co-market with. And so those are people where we think that their leadership is really smart. They have valuable things to say. We want to include them in our content marketing. We want to do podcasts with them. We want to do webinars with them. So we know we have some overlap in who our audiences are, and we think that they can bring value to the table. So for example, right now I'm working on a partnership with Incense, which is a platform in which you can, it's kind of like a Fiverr, but basically for content creation and influencer marketing and whitelisting, things like that. And I've used it before in the past. I met the founder, I really liked him, we vibed. And so I was like, let's just do some fun stuff together where we, teach people how to manage their influencers well, or like pitch to influencers well, or get the content that they want. And so, we're working on like a co-marketing partnership like that. And so the same thing actually really applies when it comes to like D2C brands that they want to partner. And let me bring it full circle here. We do a lot of events in which we partner with brands and ask them like, hey, would you be willing to give us product? We'll give you the press, we'll get your product in front of people. We'll have coverage, photography, videography, whatever. If you chip in, snacks for the event or drinks for the event. And really it's just like, damn, we think your brand's cool. We think our people would like it. I think your people will like us, or you're a client, or like you're using the product and you like it. So like, why not? And sometimes it's just like building relationships with people that you have a lot of faith in, that you think they're going to grow, and you want to like be with them as they grow, or have, be in each other's pocket as you guys grow. And so some of it is just vibes, man. Some of it's just vibes. But there are times when it's not just vibes too. And I think it's just, you got to figure out what your goal is in a partnership and then pick and choose.
Sometimes it's just vibes, man. The wonderful Val Geisler from Klaviyo on a podcast, Stephanie Griffith and I co-host of Conversational Commerce, said something incredibly similar of just, it's vibes, man. It's all about the vibes, man. So that I love that. So in terms of partnerships and co-marketing and looking to either do giveaways or bundles, like with like D2C brands with other kind of brands, we're going to start landing the plane here, which is my phrase for we're wrapping up soon. So how would a brand go about these partnerships like you're doing with your partnerships for Triple Whale? Like, how do they do it with other D2C brands?
Yeah, you slide into their DMs. I mean, truly, like for the longest time, I have been obsessed with Jambies, which is a like comfy athleisure pajama company. I am a Jambies fangirl. Like I will die on a Jambies hill. Like I will throw
They're
my
really
body
comfy.
into a burning, like I will go into my burning house to save my Jambies. I could buy more, but I love them so much I wouldn't want to watch them burn. And so I was like, F it. I'm just going to slide into their DMs and ask if they want to work on some stuff together, or like have a call and jam. And I do, in fact, have a call with them to jam soon. And who knows what's going to happen, but I'm going to shoot my shot, And so part of it is like slide into their DMs, engage with them on the internet where you can, send them an email. And you don't need to like gas them up too much. Like people can tell when you're brown nosing, whatever. But the reality is like if there is something you really respect about their brand, their leadership, you saw their founder on a podcast and you really liked something he said and that's what inspired you, or you just really like their packaging or whatever, or you've bought the product. Pro tip, I would say, don't slide into someone's DMs and tell them you're obsessed with them if they can't look in their CRM and see that you bought something. Pro tip. Or just say I haven't bought something, but whatever, I'm still obsessed. I mean, just be clear about it. But yeah, I would say just shoot your shot, because the reality is like the worst thing is they either send you a respectful no, or they just don't respond to you and whatever, like you move on with your life. So be fearless.
So slide into DMs and brand partnerships for D2C brands. You'd say at what point or what size or like what would cause someone to want to like seek out a partnership? Is it like when we mentioned in brand earlier, if you're at a plateau or something? Is it time of the year? Is it just like kind of lucky fit sometimes? Like when should brands be seeking that out?
Yeah, it's totally up to you. Like if you're just feeling like your marketing, initiative pipeline is kind of dry, totally. If you're feeling a plateau, totally. What I would say is, for example, I previously did consulting work for a matcha brand, and they are making like an alternative pre-workout matcha. It's a D2C brand called Isla, A-I-L-A. They're awesome. Their founder is awesome. They have done collabs in the past with like a company that makes jewelry that you can wear when you're working out that won't turn green when you sweat on it or something like that. And so like they know that their base of people is both people who like to work out, but they're both brands with relatively low brand awareness and the like at the time, like in the broader scope of things. And so they worked together to kind of like cross promote, cross pollinate. And so I think like that's a great opportunity if you want to do like a Father's Day bundle. So, you know, you have a shoe company and you want coffee for dad or whiskey for dad, like you can totally make it promotional and seasonal. Just know that, you know, when seasons happen, there are a billion different things going on. And so it's almost better to do special things outside of holiday seasons or promotional seasons. And then also, like, I would encourage you to think about brand collaborations as a content opportunity. So, you know, if you are a board shorts brand, partner with like a sunscreen or a flip flops brand and shoot really cool content together. Like, fly some people out, make it a thing, hang out together, get drinks and dinner together, shoot really awesome content, have fun with it, and be creative with it. Because, like, yeah, whatever, you're like, cross-pollinating your email marketing list, but at the end of the day, like, make sure that there's real core value for you from that. And it could be sick content, it could be making the relationship with the people, whatever it is.
So to sum up this entire episode is vibes and make relationships and connections with people and care about what people are saying and listen to them.
And be selective about your hiring. I can't stress that one enough.
That is as excellent. I've talked to too many people and I know it's such a hard process. Alexa, thank you so much for your time. Where do you want to send people if they want to talk to you, learn more about Triple Whale, talk to you about you, maybe book a session with you on Mentor Pass? I don't know.
Oh my goodness, thank you. So you can always reach me on Twitter. My DMs are open. It's just at Alexa Kilroy. My last name is spelled Kilroy, 1L, nonviolent, as I like to say. And then Triple Whale is trytriplewhale.com. We're also on the Tweety Birds at Triple Whale. And yeah, you're always welcome to DM me if you want to learn more, if you want maybe a sweet little promo, things like that. You let me know. I can hook you up.
Perfect. That's amazing. Go talk to Alexa at Alexa Kilroy at Triple Whale and trytriplewhale.com. Thanks again for joining me on the pod, and everyone else, I will catch you on the next one.